Greetings, this is Jim Lindsay. This is the first of two lessons that have to do with topic 6 for CIS 205. Are medical tools used to enhance human beings morally troubling is the question that we're asking. And so I wanted to show you the Blackboard site, and I wanted you to see the files with I'll be using so that you can get them as well. I'm in the folder for topic 6, and you can see that the quiz and the issue analysis are at the top of the page like always. You're watching this lesson already. These files right here, the PowerPoint presentation you may want, the Word document you for sure will want. And so this is my notes for topic 6. Make sure that you download that. When you do, it looks like this. It's a Word document, and you've seen these before. This is the outline that I used to create this lesson, and it's evolved over time. I hope that you're going to get a lot of really good information from it. So that's what we're investigating with this topic. These are the things that you'll need. I'll be working from the PowerPoint presentation momentarily, but I'm going to jump out to many different websites, and there are several different movies or tutorial videos or just videos that I want you to watch from time to time. And so I'll ask you to pause this video and then go and watch that and then come back. And so I'll point you there from this Word document. So having the Word document open as well as the video that you're currently watching, that's going to give you an idea of where to find the links that I want you to use as you go forward. I can't show you those in my movie because they're copyright protected, and if I include that stuff in my movie, YouTube won't let me post what I need to post. And so I apologize for making you pause and then jump over somewhere else, but I've learned the hard way that if I try to incorporate something else from somebody else, they'll catch it and basically block my video, and then you would lose time. And so this is where you're going to find the links that I'll point you to watch some additional videos that I think are going to really bring a bunch of these points home for you. This is a really cool topic. There's so much that we could talk about just within this one topic that you could spend weeks and weeks on this easily. But I hope you're going to enjoy it. So let's get started. Okay, as we begin, I first just wanted to spell out exactly what this issue is about, because I'm going to cover some additional stuff besides what it's actually about. There's just some other stuff that's so cool that I feel compelled to share it with you. But the question that we're asking is listed on the screen for you. This is topic 12 in the textbook. So or issue 12 in the textbook. Is the use of medical tools to enhance human beings morally troubling? And specifically what we're concentrating on is not on basically enhancing somebody to be better than normal. That's what we mean by this question. We're not talking about therapeutic uses of medicine or mechanics or genetic work to get somebody well. We're talking about taking somebody from being a normal well-being to basically better than that. That's what we're really asking in this question. So I'm going to show you several different therapeutic uses of technologies to get people to just being well, because from there they can then be taken and then built upon to make people more enhanced than that. But again, what we're really looking at is it morally troubling to take somebody and make them especially fast, especially strong, especially intelligent, and those sorts of things. And so that's what we're investigating. So as we get into this, the learning outcomes are spelled out at the very beginning of issue 12 in the book. Let me show you what those look like. These are the learning outcomes. They're pretty vague. They're not really well written compared to learning outcomes that we've seen for other issues or other topics. So in that regard, the authors of this particular chunk, don't get really high marks. But these are we'll hit all of this. what are different arguments for and against these technologies to enhance human bodies, and so on. So we're going to cover both of these learning outcomes very much. Let's look at the authors, because this is not only applicable for this topic but also for the next. And so this whole presidential commission we're going to be looking at is it's just nice for us that it's going to happen on 2 consecutive topics. But let me jump on over to the other file. Okay, so the author of the yes side of this issue in the textbook is a presidentially appointed body. It's a scientific. It's made up of people from the scientific community, the medical community, and its purpose is basically to provide advice to the president that the president just wouldn't have, because the president is not a doctor. The president is not a scientist. The president is not a geneticist. I mean, most presidents aren't those things. Most presidents come in as business people or as politicians or as lawyers or, other different professions. And so these types of commissions or bodies have been around for quite some time, at least since 1974. To the present, every single president has had a body like this, with the exception of George H.W. Bush, who is the elder Bush, not George W. Bush, not this one, but his dad, and President Trump. Those are the only 2 presidents not to have a science commission like this since 1974. The advice that these bodies offer is often very much looked at very much with disdain from people from the opposing party, because the people on the commissions like this basically are appointed by the president. They serve a 2-year term. They basically they're often criticized, saying like, hey, the advice that you offered to the presidents is just something that you constructed that just to make whatever policy they want to present. You said what they wanted to hear. And so these types of bodies are not new. They've been around since 1974. The one that you're hearing from in this story, in this issue, was George W. Bush's presidential body. They're saying like, yes, the use of medical tools to enhance human beings is morally troubling. That's what his body found. Basically, they're saying like, this is something that is a little bit scary because of X, Y, and Z. Now, the author of the no side, and please hear that again, the yes and the no side, people often get confused about what the yes and the no side are saying. If you're on the yes side of this issue, what you're saying is that you find the use of medical tools to enhance people to be something that troubles you. And that's what President Bush's commission basically states in their article that you read. The no side is authored by the gentleman you see right here, and he's a journalist. For the last 23 years, he's been at a place called Reason Magazine. His name is Ronald Bailey. He's been a science correspondent at Reason Magazine for these last 23 years. He's not a scientist. He's not trained in science, but for the last 30 plus years, he's been working in science. So I think the guy is, he's pretty credible. If you're a Republican or if you're right wing, this is your week, because everybody you're hearing from on both the yes and the no side is from the right, is right leaning. Bailey here is libertarian, very fiscally conservative. George W. Bush, I think everybody would agree, was very conservative president. And so all of this information that you're hearing is really coming from that side of the political spectrum, which is interesting, because you'd think that like the opposing sides on this would be very much left wing versus right wing. That's not the case. And just as an aside, with the current president, with President Trump, even just as late as 2 weeks ago, let me pause this and get over to an article I'm going to show you. Okay, this is from March 25th, 2020. So we're talking in the last 2 weeks. This is from National Review. I mean, it's hard to get. That's very right-leaning. Their commission basically, what they're saying is like, hey man, this guy needs a bioethics commission to be talking, to be guiding the president on coronavirus. And so the fact that he doesn't have one, he's receiving criticism from lots of ends of the spectrum on the fact that he's not created such a body. So that's where your information is coming from in this issue. And let's keep going. All right, the next thing I wanted to bring up with you is just basically why might this issue be controversial? And I tried to put some images out here that you might relate to with that would remind you of controversy. I've got this dress that kind of circulated on social media a number of years ago that some people looked at the picture and they thought it was gold and white, and the other people saw blue and gray. And then this one right here, this image right here, does this say Yanni or does this say Laurel? And so there was there's lots of debate on social media about what this image actually was showing, right? And so the reasons that this particular topic are often viewed, and this goes back to our learning outcomes. So why might this whole idea be controversial? Well, there are some physical concerns, and then there are some philosophical and ethical concerns. And when you look at the physical concerns, when you start looking at the human being, the human body, and then altering it in some way to make it better at what it's supposed to do, like make eyesight better, or make memory better, or make strength better. When you start to do those sorts of things, you start to then maybe be concerned about physical safety. Is that safe to take the human body and make it do these things you're trying to make it do? Another concern that comes up is basically fairness. Is this sort of treatment, is this sort of enhancement something that is affordable for all people? And at least initially, it's certainly not going to be. Think about when new technology, any kind of new technology comes out, is typically rather expensive, right? And so with these types of enhancements, if it's not available to all sorts of people, is that going to put the people that can't afford it at a big disadvantage? For example, if you're trying to be an athlete and you're trying to get to a level of play where you could play at, like, say, professional sports, and this sort of thing is of enhancement, if this becomes commonplace, well, if you're poor and you can't afford that, are you ever going to be able to excel to the level where you could compete with people who have been enhanced? That's one of the questions that is raised. Another aspect of that same sort of thing is, what if people are then coerced or forced to do such enhancement? For example, let's say you wanted to join the military and be a sniper, or you wanted to be a pilot. Let's say through enhancement you can make it so a person's eyesight is perfect, or instead of being 20/20, you can get their vision down to better than that, or you can make their speed such that they can just fight better than most people, or they can run faster than normal people. If that's the case with enhancement, and you're trying to field a basically an army or a fleet of people that can fight for you, wouldn't you want the strongest, most capable soldiers and sailors and airmen possible, right? And so would it then become a condition of enlistment, or a condition of signing up to be in the military, that you let them subject you to such enhancements? And so that's one of the ideas that comes into this this discussion. And that could be in the commercial world too. What if there's some way to make it so you remember things just like, almost like you have a photographic memory, or you can just stay awake for and work for 20 hours a day. if that becomes something that's possible, what if one of the conditions of you getting employment at a company that you wanted to work at was, okay, well, we'll hire you, but you have to then go through this sort of enhancement. And again, then you start to go back to those other concerns. Is this safe? Is this going to alter something else that was unexpected? And that's where these sorts of things start to become potentially controversial. On the philosophical and ethical concerns, we often ask the question, just because we can possibly do something, should we? If you can't, just because you can do something doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing to do or the moral thing to do. And we'll get to that when we start talking about cyber war, because the amount of things that you can do through a cyber attack are pretty amazing. From a technological standpoint, some of the things you can do through hacking is just like, wow, that is, it's pretty cool. But then you look at, well, just because we can do it, if we do that, what are the consequences going to be of those actions? And those can be, very, very serious, right? And so likewise with this sort of enhancement, are we playing with things that basically we think we understand but probably don't? And it's often referred to as playing God. Are you getting into a realm of making modifications of things that you probably don't really completely understand, and maybe you shouldn't mess with? And then there's also, from the ethical standpoint, what about people just working hard? Isn't there virtue to that, to people working hard and having to sacrifice and then get to a level of performance that is just extraordinary? And if all of a sudden, if you could just go through an enhancement procedure and then be able to perform at that same level, have you cheapened? Is that a cheapened experience because you didn't have to work hard to get there like the other person did? And so that's something that is often looked at as a controversy of this aspect, or of this topic. And then finally, on the ethical concern, it's sometimes debated whether once this sort of enhancement sort of thing starts to take place, are people going to become really selfish? And is this going to... That's my dog. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that. Through this ability to be so smart or be so quick or be so strong. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Let me move. All right, sorry about that. I moved him so you won't hear that anymore. That's really gross. So that's that's one of the things we also want to think about. Is this going to be something that propels us to be selfish or propels us to be self-centered, as opposed to being more concerned about community and more concerned about others? And so those are all things which help us to, those are all things about this topic that are commonly looked at as making it controversial. Now, what we'll do for the rest of the lesson is lessons is we'll look at 5 different ways in which people can be enhanced. We're going to look at mechanical means, electrical means, pharmacological means, surgical, and genetic. And we're just going to cover a couple of these in the rest of this lesson, then we'll get to the last 3 in the last lesson. And again, I'm going to be directing you out to several different web pages and videos that show this stuff. Man, it's really cool stuff, and so I hope you're going to love it. But we'll start with the mechanical, and we'll get to that right now. All right, so let's get to the mechanical first. The mechanical means of enhancing a human being to perform at a higher level than they normally would be, just with their regular body. And so what I present to you is a number of different types of exoskeletons, or I would like to present to you a number of different types of exoskeletons. And the first type I'd like to show you is a medical exoskeleton. This first thing I'm going to show you is therapeutic. This is something to fix a problem that somebody has gotten through an accident or through being born in such a way that their legs don't work, or this first thing is not enhancement. So this very first thing, the medical exoskeletons, is definitely therapeutic. We're trying to bring somebody up to normal performance, or a performance like an able-bodied person. The other types of exoskeletons that I will show you, things like the Sarcos exoskeletons for work, the military exoskeletons, the athletic exoskeletons, those are definitely enhancement. But this first one, I just want you to see, because the Sarcos stuff, the military stuff, the athletic stuff, we wouldn't have those if it weren't for the medical exoskeletons to start with. And then two, it's just really neat to see these medical exoskeletons and what they are. These are suits. If you've ever seen the movie Avatar, and in the Avatar movie, when spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you some stuff about the movie Avatar. When the Earthlings get to this place where the blue people, and I don't know what you call the blue people in the Avatar movie, when they get to their home planet and they're out there walking around on the blue people's planet, you've got like these big mechanical bodies that are 2 or 3 stories tall, and with these big mechanical bodies, they can they can go really fast, and they're strong, and they can cut down trees and all sorts of stuff like that. That's what an exoskeleton looks like. It's that kind of apparatus. Or the movie Alien, where in one of the Alien movies, the lady, basically Sigourney Weaver, basically fights one of the aliens, and she has this big exoskeleton on, and it makes her sort of like a giant, like an alien. And so these devices that you put on your body, they allow you to be super strong. They allow you potentially to be fast. They allow you to do things that just as a normal human you couldn't do. And so let's take a quick look at some of these different devices. You're looking at 2 different medical exoskeletons, and again, these are for therapeutic purposes. The one on the left is called a twice exoskeleton, and the one on the right is called a rewalk medical exoskeleton. And if you look in the notes for, and I hope that you will, I really hope you're going to look at these different things I'm going to direct you to, because this stuff, this is uplifting. This is really cool technology. The way that this benefits people and brings them to, brings them some goodness in their life is just really cool stuff. And so I'm going to jump over to my notes real quickly. I'll see you in a second. All right, I'm in my notes for this topic 6, and I'm at the bottom of page 2, and I'm going to double click in between where the pages, as you go from page 2 to page 3, I'm going to double click there to make that space go away. And as you look at this section of the document, it talks about all these different medical, these mechanical means of enhancing one's body, right? And so these first several, it talks about the Rewalk personal exoskeleton, the Twice exoskeleton, the Sudex, and the Indigo. These are just 4 different examples of medical exoskeletons. The one I wanted to show you was this Rewalk one, and I'm going to go to that website. If you open that link, that web page looks like this. And as you scroll through here and look at this, you'll see, for example, this is the medical exoskeleton that you saw pictured on the other page. And this is a person who, either through an accident or through some degenerative disease, or just through the condition in which they were born, they couldn't walk on their own. And so this exoskeleton gives them that ability. And to see what that looks like, if you click on on the right side where it talks about testimonials, if you click on the watch more videos, this site has continued to get more and more testimonials over time. I've used this site for a year or so, and so the one that I really like, the one that I wanted to share, that I would share with you if we were in class, if you come down here to Rewalker with Agnes, if you click on that, and again I can't click on it and show it to you because then I'll get busted with copyright problems, but I hope you'll watch that video. And so what I'll do, again, this is on from the Rewalk web page, where it talks about testimonials. You click on watch more videos, you scroll on down to the different testimonials that are available. The one I'm encouraging you to watch is this Rewalker Agnes. If you watch that, and so I'm going to pause this, and hopefully you will get a chance to watch that, and I'll talk to you in a second. Okay, welcome back. I hope that you took that chance to watch that movie about the lady and her experience with that Rewalk exoskeleton, and all the other websites that are listed in the notes there. They have similar types of videos. Each of those devices is a little bit different. This Twice one, for example, is pretty light, and it's pretty good for helping people do things like going upstairs, whereas some of the others are really heavy and they're not good at that, but they're better at other things. Some of them they're all expensive, but some of them are more expensive than the others. Like the Twice one is in the $30,000 neighborhood. The Rewalker one is up towards a $70,000 price tag. There's one from Indigo, which is about $90,000. I mean, it's just, and that's tremendously expensive. I get that, but at the same time, if you're talking about getting your mobility back and then having that device to use for many, 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 many years, I mean, I'm sure that that's something that you would want, right? And so getting that mobility and being able to interact with your family, and then just the health effects of it, like as you saw from the Agnes video, the fact that she was able to now get out and move, a lot of the ailments that she was having from being sedentary started to get better. And so these are really cool, again, therapeutic uses of technology, mechanical technology, to basically get somebody from a injured state to a whole state. So this is therapeutic stuff. Let's get to what we're talking about specifically with this issue, which would be enhancing somebody mechanically for beyond regular human performance. I have 3 of these I wanted to show you, and the first is from a company called Sarcos. These guys are a robotics company, and this exoskeleton that you're looking at right here is called the Guardian XO, and it's going to be used, it is used in industry for a number of different things. It looks a lot like what you saw over here with these medical exoskeletons, but they're bigger. They encompass more of the body. Like you'll see, this is the arms and the legs. And what this particular one is being used for at this point is to give people pretty much super strength. What people wearing this sort of exoskeleton can do is they can lift lots and lots of weight. They can hold things that's really hot. They can work in dangerous areas perhaps that would not be possible if you had to use your own hands and feet. And so if you look at the notes for this lesson, let me jump over. Okay, I'm in the notes. I'm going to scroll on down the page here, and I'm on page 3 of the notes. It talks about the Sarcos exoskeletons, and there's a link right here to sarcos.com, products, Guardian XO. If you open that up, what it looks like is this, and as you scroll down this page, it shows you pictures and gives you information about the Sarcos exoskeleton, and there's a video right there, and you can watch that. If you just maybe 45 seconds of that video, 45 seconds, maybe a minute. And what they do, they go through a number of different environments in which this Sarcos Guardian XO exoskeleton is being used to help people do jobs. Also at this page, as you look at this page, there are a number of, and in the document, over in the Word document, I have some news coverage about, as you click on, if you wanted to click on any one of those links, essentially they're all talking about the same thing. And there's an example from Delta Airlines. Let me go back to the web page over there, and this one is from Popular Science, where they've done some coverage as recently as March 2nd. What Delta is doing is they're having their luggage handlers use these Sarcos Guardian XO suits to basically be able to move lots and lots of luggage quickly and without injury. It doesn't matter if you're 5 feet tall and you weigh 100 pounds, or whether you're 6'8" and you're 350 and you can bench press a truck. It doesn't matter. With the Guardian Exosuit, whoever they have to work can get in there and basically move that stuff. And there are different attachments, and you'll see those in the videos. In this case, these hooks might be something that you'd use to hook into handles. These paddles right here can basically clamp together and grab boxes, really heavy boxes of stuff. All sorts of different attachments that can be put on here. They've got some that they use at tire facilities that are sort of shaped to fit on the edge of a tire. And so, a tire doesn't sound like it's that heavy. Think about if you were handling tires, 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. In fact, my sister-in-law, her father works at he has like really profound shoulder trouble, because that's what he's done like his whole career. He's a retired guy now, but he has a whole lot of trouble with his shoulders because of the repetitive movement of basically moving tires. And although that doesn't sound like they're that heavy, a suit like this could help somebody go through that same career and not sustain those types of injuries. And so this is an example of a mechanical exoskeleton, basically allowing a person to perform at a super strength and endurance sort of level that wouldn't otherwise be available. So this is our first example of an enhancement. So if you want to take a quick 45 seconds and take a quick look at that, please do. I'll pause. I'll jump on over to the PowerPoint, and I'll meet you over there. Okay, the next example I have of an exoskeleton I have for you is for military exoskeletons, and they look similar. You can see some of these are actually coming from Sarcos, that same company that we saw pictured here. But these exoskeletons, they're being researched by DARPA, and that's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. That's the organization which basically is responsible for us having the internet. If you've ever taken CIS 141 with me, you'll remember we talked about DARPA and its ARPANET, which basically evolved into what we know as the internet. So DARPA does all kinds of really cool stuff. They're kind of tied in with NASA, and the amount of brain power that works over at DARPA and NASA and those sorts of things, it's staggering. It's pretty cool stuff. These exoskeletons are supposed to help soldiers do their job. And as you can see, this guy is working in a rocky, a mountainous sort of terrain. And imagine if you were trying to patrol through that area, all day long, or you're trying to complete a mission where you have to go through a very mountainous area. Think of Afghanistan. And while those guys work and those gals work, they're carrying a lot of heavy gear, right? And so if you could give them some sort of equipment that they could wear that would allow them to complete that same job in such a way that they can do it faster, and they can do it in a less so that they're less prone to injury, why wouldn't you, right? And so that's what this kind of equipment is supposed to be for. If you look in the notes, and I've got links to actually two articles and then a video that I just want to point out to you. I'm going to switch over to the notes. Okay, so I'm in the notes, and this is on the bottom of page 3 going to page 4. It talks about military exoskeletons, and you have a couple of different stories from exoskeletonreport.com from 16 and 19, and 2016, 2019. So there's sort of an update as you go. So you look at those stories. It talks about, in this story, the first one from 2016, various different ideas about how exoskeletons may help military personnel do their jobs. And that's kind of gives you some knowledge about how these things might be employed. You jump over to the second one. It's a really short one. This is from 2019 in January. It's talking specifically about medics, and there's actually a link to a video in here which does not play well. Well, actually, it's there's a link within the story to this ESPN.com video, which I found the link to it from xgames.com, same video. And so I wanted you to be able to see this video if you want. Now, here's a warning. This video is graphic. It has simulated battlefield footage, and so people look like they're bloody and blown up and stuff like that. They're not. It's not real. But the medics, as you go through medic training, they have to practice that, rehearse that, so there's not so much shock when they get out there and actually see that sort of stuff, right? And so this story points out, now, if you're a medic and you're carrying litters with people on them, or you're dragging somebody from point A to point B to help them get to cover so you can start to work on them, and they have wounds, right? How might an exoskeleton be helpful in that? And so as you look at these different pictures of exoskeletons, it should make sense. Go like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, the guy's got more leg power, he has more arm power, he can hook in those hooks. Let's say somebody's like the suspenders and stuff that you wear, like your load bearing equipment, if we included hooks on there, so like a medic with an exoskeleton could grab you and then start running with you, it might save your life. It might get you out of danger faster. And so these are exoskeletons which will potentially be employed to basically help soldiers do their job at a more capable level than they could if they had to physically use their own arms and legs. And so this is our second example. So if you would like to check out that video, again, it does have some simulated blood and stuff in there. It's a few minutes, but if you want to check out that video from xgames.com, feel free to do that. I'm going to pause and jump on over to the presentation again. Okay, so welcome back to the presentation. My last one I wanted to show you was an athletic exoskeleton, and so I'm going to go on over to my next slide, and on this slide I have a picture of a guy wearing a jetpack. You can see it pictured right there. So it's not a full body exoskeleton in this, like you saw in the previous example. What this one is, this is a story, again, also from DARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, that has been looking at ways to help. There's a 4-minute mile project through DARPA, and with this 4MM, or this 4-minute mile project at DARPA, there's a goal to make it so that every person on the battlefield can run a mile in 4 minutes. And think about that. I mean, when I'm having a really good day at this point, if I can run a mile in 10 minutes, I'm really happy with that. When it's under 10 minutes, I'm pretty ecstatic. So for me to be good out there and then run a mile in 4 minutes, that's crazy. That'd be awesome. How do you get somebody to that point? Well, one of the ways that they've been experimenting to get people to that point is literally through jetpacks. And so what you're seeing here is a guy this is down at Arizona State University, and I've got the story for that, a link to that. I want you to see what these guys look like as they wear the jetpack and they run and they do other stuff, because the speed at which it moves you is just incredible. So I'm going to jump over to the notes. I'll pause right here. Okay, so I'm in the notes. This is page 4 of the notes. This is right underneath the military exoskeleton stuff we looked at a second ago. So there's a link here to this Arizona State University story. If you open that page, what it looks like is this. And as you scroll through this information and look at it, and then if you watch this video, what you'll see is these engineering students basically are learning and experimenting with these jetpacks, and they've made several different versions of it. And you can see it's a multi-year project that they've been working on this. But they haven't been able to reach 4 minutes yet. And it can't take a Jim Lindsay that runs 10 minutes on a good day to 4 minutes. But it can speed me up a lot. And in fact, you run so fast, you see when you run with this thing, you wear a helmet, because if you fall over, you're going to smack your head on the ground. I mean, it really does move you much faster. In addition to that, if you do things like ride a bike or you ride a skateboard, this thing will, on a bicycle, there was a guy, and you'll see it in the video, he gets up to 53 miles per hour on a bike. On a skateboard, on a longboard, he gets up to 32 miles per hour. And you can see that as you watch the video. These are technologies being used to move people to superhuman speed at this point. So these are, I think, good examples of mechanical means of enhancing humans. And so these are the things we're talking about. So if you want to take a quick look at that, it's well worth the time. It's only a couple of minutes long. But feel free to watch that, and I will meet you back at the presentation. All right, so thank you for your attention on those types of enhancements. The next thing I wanted to show you was our next category of technologies which can be used to not only treat somebody therapeutically but also enhance them, and those come from electricity. And I like to, if we're in the classroom, I like to start this and ask the question, has anybody in here ever been tased before? Because those usually end up being kind of funny stories anyway. But if you've ever been had that experience of being tased or shocked by electricity, it's generally not real positive. And the experience, so when you think about that, well, what if I can take electricity and use that in a positive way? Well, you can. So in addition to making every single muscle in your body contract at the same time, like from a taser, if you can do that more precisely, you can actually do all kinds of really cool stuff with electricity to enhance one's body performance. So let's take a look at these. Okay, this type of technology has been in use for over 100 years, 103 years at this point. As early as 1917, doctors were using what they called electroshock therapy within psychiatry, and essentially they were taking electricity and applying it to parts of the brain to treat mental illness. It's still in use, and now it's called electroconvulsive therapy, but that's still being utilized, obviously differently, but that is something that is electricity, and this is therapeutic. This first thing I'm sharing with you is obviously we're trying to take somebody who has been injured or somebody who is not well at the moment and bring them up to where they're functioning at full capacity like a regular person, right? And so the second example I have for you with electricity has to do with what's called a pacemaker, and perhaps you know somebody that has a pacemaker. These have been around since as early as 1960, and what these sorts of devices do, they are inserted in your body, and wire leads are basically connected to your heart, and then through a charge, basically through a shock that is administered by the pacemaker device, it makes your heart beat at a rate which is healthy. We have a guy that I have a friend that basically has a really slow pulse. I mean, this guy he's a runner. He's always had a super slow pulse, and as he's aged, he's had to get a pacemaker because his pulse has continued. I mean, just really, really low pulse, and so it's gotten so slow that he'll pass out. And so with this pacemaker in place, and it runs off of a battery, it shocks his heart at a specific rate, and so he is able to continue to function and be healthy. These are therapeutic uses of electricity to the human body. So in addition to these two, electroshock therapy and pacemakers, I wanted to then also show you something called deep brain stimulation, and this is my favorite. Again, I told you at the beginning there's some uplifting stories and things that you can hear from this. This is one of them. I hope this will brighten your day. With this technology, through electricity, very similarly to what's done with pacemakers, doctors will take wires and then insert those in one's body, and instead of putting them to the heart, what they'll do, they'll put them up in the brain. and then they'll run those wires down through, and it's, you know, it's a very complicated thing. They have to run it down through your body, and it's they do that through a number of different means, but basically there's a charging unit which basically then shocks the brain in specific places, and through that shocking of the brain, it helps fix tremors and other problems that people can experience from things like Parkinson's disease. And so let me jump on over to the notes, because I want to show you two quick I'd like to show you two web pages. So I'll pause this and go over there. Okay, I'm on page 4 of my notes. This is just underneath the jetpack stuff that you guys saw a second ago. And as you come on down here to where it talks about deep brain stimulation, there are two links I want to point out to you. The first is this Wall Street Journal article right here, and then the second is this YouTube video. The Wall Street Journal article page looks like this. It's a video page, and this is a great explanation of deep brain stimulation, but it's not real. And it's short. If you watch that, it explains to you how deep brain stimulation works. And the same thing, if you were interested in the pacemakers a second ago, same kind of deal. It's just wires going to your heart instead of your brain. But check that out. Now this other video, this second video, this is my favorite one I share with you throughout the days, is this one right here. And it's a Parkinson's disease patient, and this as you open that link, what that web page looks like is this right here. And this is a gentleman that basically, as you watch the video, it's about 2 minutes long. You know, have a tissue handy, because if you don't cry from that, you're some kind of psycho. I mean, he shakes so much, and if you ever have known somebody that suffers from Parkinson's disease, I mean, it's just debilitating. And as soon as they turn on this DBS unit, you see his body stop, and you see him regain control, and the things that, you know, so check out that video. That's a really cool video. That's awesome. I would love to be like the medical staff that work in this video. That has to be a great job, because you're going to work and seeing people make that kind of leap in their, you know, just their ability to function. That has to be just really uplifting. And so that's a cool video. So that is, you know, all three of those things, the electroshock therapy, the pacemaker stuff, this deep brain stimulation, these are all examples of therapeutic use of electricity. So that's not what we're talking about specifically for this issue, but they also take us to where we can then get to enhancement. So let's now, I hope you'll watch that. I'll pause this and jump on over to the presentation again, meet you back there, but I hope you'll take a second and watch that. Okay, hopefully that was, hopefully you like that. The last thing I have to show you is a enhancement for humans through something called Neuralink or Neuralace. And as I learned about this, as I was preparing the lessons for this, what it reminded me of was this book and this movie called Johnny Mnemonic back from the 90s. And I remember reading this book while I was in college at WKU. It was a really cool book. The movie's terrible. I mean, it's one of probably the top 5 worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And I love Keanu Reeves. He's probably my favorite actor on the planet. But Johnny Mnemonic is bad. But this movie, what it talks about is really, if this next thing works, if this enhancement works like they want it to, we could be a Johnny Mnemonic, pretty much. And so, kind of, I mean, but it's really pretty neat. So let me jump on over to some information about this Neuralink. I'm sure you recognize this guy. This is a famous entrepreneur. You guys have heard of Elon Musk before. And so what Elon Musk is proposing with this Neuralink and Neuralace project is using electricity and medical technology to basically implant mesh in our brains, in our heads, and through that allowing us to connect to devices and employ computing processing with our brains. It's amazing. It doesn't work yet, obviously, and so, but the consequences of this, if it does work, would be really cool. And so I'm going to jump over to the notes. Let me pause right here. I'm going to jump to the notes. So you'll recognize this from where we were a second ago, just underneath the deep brain stimulation stuff. Again, that was all therapeutic, but coming down here to this Neuralink stuff, this is definitely enhancement. And there's a link here there are 2 links I want to point out to you for sure. The first is this YouTube video, and the next is a CNET video. So take a look at both of those. The first one, the YouTube video, I want you to watch it. And so it's about a 4.5-minute video, and when you watch it, it introduces what Neuralink and Neuralace is supposed to do. And I have a discussion question for you. One of the issue analysis questions for you is based on this implementation of technology, because if it worked, I'm curious whether you would want it. How much would you be willing to pay for it? Why would you not want it? How do you see yourself using that enhancement to better, your life and the life of your family? And these are the kinds of things that I want you thinking. Would you want this for your kids? That sort of stuff. And so, if you look over at the issue analysis, this number 5, question number 5 here is about this Neuralace project that Elon Musk is proposing. And this is from a 2017 news story. There was a 2020 update to this back on February 4th from this year. Elon Musk is still pursuing this, and he's talking about an update that's coming. So it's still out there. It sounds like it's really far out, but it's still being developed. It's still gaining traction, and so I wanted to show this to you. So please take a look at that video, and you'll get to share your thoughts with me on that when you complete the issue analysis. So I'm going to go back to the presentation, and I'll wrap up. Okay, so thank you for your attention. This is where I wanted to end the first day. This is where we would have gotten if we were in a classroom. The next round of things I'll bring to your attention for the day 2 of this, or part 2 of this, that's where we'll start with the pharmacological stuff. But thanks for your time and attention on this. I hope you learned something new, and have a great day.